Someone, somewhere, or both, in millions or uncountable, requires, likes, needs, values, collects, drinks, eats, or uses as a drug a substance identified as loosh, which is electricity, oil, oxygen, gold, wheat, water, land, old coins, uranium. This is a rare substance in somewhere, and those who possess loosh find it vital for whatever it is used for. Faced with this question of supply and demand, a universal law of somewhere, someone decided to produce it artificially, so to speak. Rather than search for it in its natural form, he decided to build a garden and grow loosh. Build a garden like Adam and Eve. In the natural state, loosh was found to originate from a series of vibrational actions in the carbon-oxygen cycle, and the residue was loosh in varying degrees of purity. It occurred only during such action and secondarily during the reactive process. Prospectors from somewhere ranged far and wide in search of loosh sources, and new discoveries were hailed with much enthusiasm and reward. So it was that someone and his garden changed all this. Far off in a remote area, he set to work on his experiment. First, he created a proper environment for the carbon-oxygen cycle, where it would flourish. He created a balance with much care so that proper radiation and other nourishment would be in continuous supply. He then tried his first crop. Yeah, that's right, we're crops. Which actually did produce loosh, but only in small quantities and of comparatively low grade, not significant enough to take back to the heart of somewhere. The problem was twofold. The life period was too short, and the crop units themselves were too minute. This brought about limits in quality and quantity, as the crop had no time to generate loosh in such close tolerances. Moreover, the loosh could be harvested only at the moment of termination of its lifespan, not one moment before. His second crop was no better, if as good. He changed the environment to another part of the garden, where the density was gaseous rather than liquid, and the higher density chemicals formed a solid base and thus were still available. Planted numberless units in many varieties in a new form, with a great increase in size, some many thousands of times larger and more complex than the simple unicellular first crop. He reversed the carbon-oxygen cycle, yet all had basic uniformity. Like the first crop, they would reseed at regular intervals and terminate their lifespans automatically. To avoid the uneven distribution of chemicals and radiation which had been prevalent in the first crop, he immobilized the second crop. Each was designed to stay principally in its own section of the garden. To this end, each was given firm tendrils which burrowed deep in the more dense chemical matter. Attached to this was a stem or a trunk, which helped elevate the upper portion upward for its share of needed radiation. The upper portion, broad, thin, and somewhat fragile, was designed as a transducer of carbon-oxygen compounds to and from the crop unit. As an added thought, brilliant color radiators, or eyes, accompanied by small particle generators, were mounted on each unit, usually near the top and symmetrically centered. He set up circulating patterns in the gaseous envelope around the crop, principally to aid in the reseeding process. Later, he discovered that the same turbulent effect served as a means of harvesting the loosh. If the turbulence were violent enough, the crop would be blown down, the lifespan terminated, and the loosh would discharge. This was especially useful when an immediate loosh supply was desired at a particular point rather than at harvest time, like when we have harvest moon. Despite all of this, the second crop was most unsatisfactory. While it was true that a much greater quantity was attained, the unrefined loosh produced was of such low grade that it was scarcely worth the effort. In addition, the growth period was now too long and no increase in quality resulted. Some vital element was missing. Someone hovered over his garden for a long period and study before he attempted the third crop. It was indeed a challenge. True, he was partially successful. He had grown loosh, yet the product in his efforts fell far short of the wild, uncultivated variety. It was inevitable that he perceived the answer. The third crop was living proof of this truth. The original carbon-oxygen cycle must be included. Mobility must be restored. Both factors had shown great promise in high-grade loosh production. If size could be added to this, much could be accomplished. Okay, so now here's some actual pictures I took. These were 2 nights ago. It was, you can see the entities, see them waiting in line to get their share of that loosh that was in that so-called star that came out a little green actually looking. But anyway, you can see, when you get a close-up, you can see them sucking in the loosh. I mean, this is physical evidence that what he's saying is correct. There's a stream of loosh going into this guy's mouth. I mean, you can see it. You can see them. You can see the outlines of them. I mean, it's how high up they are. I don't know. Here's another one. And that one you can see two eyes, a mouth. I mean, this is the actual loosh is in the shape of a face. Yeah, look, I can't explain it. It's just that's what I see, and you can see the entities around it, and they're sucking it in. I've said, years ago, I don't know, they're sucking something in, and finally, it's all coming together. So that's what's going on up there. Here's one that this was also a couple of nights ago, but you can see them in that other layer. There's like a film between us and them, and I don't know if this is below the firmament, above the firmament, or what they call the firmament. Who knows if anything is true at this point? But yeah, you can definitely see these entities. These are the pictures. The blacker ones, those are the ones I took tonight, where it wasn't so overcast. But here's a so-called star, or loosh, and you can see the faces in them, and then you can see the entities around the outside of them breathing it in. Maybe you can't, I don't know, but I can. And here's another one. You can see the distorted looking face. You can see the entities around the outside. There's a guy with his mouth open. There's another guy, see, with a trail of loosh going to his mouth or his nose. Yeah, I mean, that's what's going on. So here is physical proof that what he was saying makes sense. So here you go. Look, there's loosh going right into this guy's mouth. You can see his mouth, his nose, his eyes. And yeah. So you match up this with a story that you just heard from Robert Monroe, and it's pretty clear to me. I mean, I'm just using my own discernment here. I have no proof of this, but that, to me, is finally the answer. And do what you will with that information. But now here's one. Look at this. This looks like a the form of a woman or something, and then you can see this guy here is with his nose. He's sucking in the loosh around her, and it looks too like she's coming out of like almost some plumbing or something, a pipe. I mean, it's crazy. But yeah, that's them feeding off the loosh, just as he says. And see, this guy's got his mouth open. You can see his teeth, and he's taking a big hit. And then there's a guy behind him and a guy behind him. Here's a little line of them waiting to take their hits. So yeah, if that's not enough proof for you, I don't know what is. But thanks for watching.